It's the harrowing story that has dominated the news since the 13th of June, when Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates sadly lost their lives in the Nottingham attack.
Yes, in just a moment we'll be speaking to the parents of victims Barnaby and Grace. But before we do, let's remind ourselves of the tragic events that took place. On the 13th of June, two university students, Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, were walking back to their student accommodation after a night out celebrating the end of their exams. They were attacked and fatally stabbed on the street in Nottingham. Their killer was 32-year-old Valdo Calacane. Calacane then tried to break into a residential home but was pushed away by a resident. He then targeted his next victim, 65-year-old school caretaker Ian Coates, who he left for dead before stealing his van. Calacane then took to the city centre and ran over 3 pedestrians who were lucky to survive the impact. After his attacks, he was caught by the police and taken into custody. Since then, 4 forensic psychiatrists agreed that the 32-year-old had been suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. Calacane's plea of manslaughter was accepted rather than a murder conviction, and he will remain in a high-security hospital, probably for the rest of his life. However, the families of the victims and the survivors feel more should be done. They are now calling for a full public inquiry.
And Barnaby's parents, Emma and David Webber, alongside Grace's parents, Sanjoy Kumar and Sinead O'Malley, join us now. There is really nothing we can say to say we're so sorry to hear what's happened to you. It's truly a shocking story. We've all been following it. Emma and David, I'm going to come to you two first. I know this month would have been Barnaby's, was it his 20th birthday?
Yeah.
It would have been.
Yep.
How do you even begin to understand what's gone on and knowing that this birthday is coming up?
When it... see, we've had lots of firsts already because we had his brother's 16th, then we had Christmas, New Year's, Dad's birthday, but Barney's birthday was the 11th of January and it was the hardest first.
I bet.
Because, you know, I can't bear to look at Facebook or memories. I used to make them take photographs and they would hate doing it, but it's for memories, and he's not here anymore. And we did celebrate his birthday. Yeah. He's got a banner on his bed, isn't he?
Oh.
Yeah, and his little candle thingy. But that was tough. That was tough and very, very cruel. But we got through it, like we've got through everything else, and trying to, you know, we just... I wondered if they should...
That's exactly what it's there.
It's everything's hard. Everything we're having to do now is tough, but the birthday was a tricky one.
Well, look, we appreciate you so much coming in today. We really
and,
do.
you know, I'm gutted and I'm heartbroken for you that you are all sat here. You shouldn't have to be for so many reasons. Emma and David, you've been so vocal since June throughout this time. How have you, when your hearts are breaking, how have you kept your composure?
I think it's a very hard question to answer because if you'd asked me prior to this, before June 13th, how I would react, I'd say that I'd be in a ball in the corner, unable to function, maybe not even here anymore. However, you somehow find some strength, and I think you find it because of your loved ones and what's happened to them, and the fact that you need to fight for them. They're not here to fight anymore. So that's the only way I can describe it. It's I wish I could give you an answer that said this is exactly how you'll deal with it.
I don't know how we're still standing.
I don't.
I like holding on by my fingernails, but I'll tell you who we are doing it for, as well as Barnaby, is his brother Charlie.
Yeah.
And, you know, he deserves everything, and he's 16, and it's the worst thing in the world that's happened to him, but we have to give him life, and he deserves a happy life, so...
Yeah.
That's what we're working on.
The biggest kick in the mouth, however you want to see this, is obviously the case happened. The charges were changed from murder to manslaughter. There is no words or conviction that could ever bring your children back. But for you, Sanjoy, it's not right. This should never have happened. I could sit here and mention his name. I could say all of this. I'm not going to, because I don't think you need to hear that. But what was going through your mind when that sentence was read out?
the utter sense of kind of loss that we've had has just been huge. And like you said, you know, a kick in the mouth, what we want as parents is that this person never, ever comes back out. We've not been given that reassurance. I would really like, as a father, I'd really like the reassurance that this man is never, you know, never able to come out in public again. And I'd love that reassurance. Sentencing in a way is sort of immaterial. We need to protect the public. Every government is there to protect the public. And we just want this guy never to come out. It's not just for us. It's actually, you know, we'll be gone 20, 30 years. What about our children who have to then perhaps, and their children who have to face perhaps this guy being released?
Yeah.
And we just want to make sure that never happens.
Sinead, what goes through your mind when you hear something like that? You know, we've all been following this story, as awful as it is, and to hear that was changed to manslaughter, and looking at previous cases as well, sometimes when people are admitted to a hospital prison, however you want to look at it, they could maybe serve 20 years and then be let out, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the judge made his sentencing based on the evidence that was presented to him, and we respect that. But to our mind, there's still questions that we are not completely convinced about. This was a man who, despite having paranoid schizophrenia, which we don't deny, completed a degree. He clearly was able to focus. He engaged with his academic requirements. He must have had lucid times, as he graduated only the year before in mechanical engineering from Nottingham. So for him not to have a mental health assessment on the day, for no one to have raised concerns about him being acutely psychotic or think he needed to go to hospital or see a psychiatrist or be medicated, none of that happened. So that's always going to play in our mind, that the diminished could have been potentially a murder charge.
Absolutely.
You know, that his toxicology potentially could have been positive. He wouldn't have had diminished open to him.
That wasn't done.
That wasn't done. So we do have questions, but more about that, the failings leading up to it.
Yeah, yeah.
The healthcare failings.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, the questions we have about the investigation. But ultimately, we're here to remind the public about who this person is, so that in 30 years' time, Valdo Callicane does not get released. He's a danger to the public. He's never to be trusted.
Sinead, tell me, to me, Grace was a complete hero that night. What was she like in day-to-day life?
Grace had been a hero and stood up for her friends since she was 8 years old. She never, thank you, darling. She always stood up for the underdog, and she never let anyone be bullied or marginalised. The fact that she stood up for Barney and tried to intervene in his attack is...
Not surprised at all.
No. I mean, it's just the way she was. It breaks our hearts. She could have run. But we don't think about that. It's not what if anymore. She did what she did, and that's the person she was.
I don't think they stood a chance. That this coward, this monstrous coward, hid in the shadows for 10 minutes waiting for them. It was calculated. He had a rucksack full of weapons. Barbaric knives, knife sharpeners, and an iron bar. And he waited for them. He ambushed Barney. He didn't stand a chance. He did try to defend himself. Grace, I wish she had run, but she is my hero, and she will always be my hero, but it's heartbreaking. Between the three of them, there were nearly 50 stab wounds.
Yeah. It's horrifying.
It is.
Horrifying.
And it is, and the unanswered questions and our challenges and our concerns during the investigation have led us to be here today. And with respect, it's lovely to meet you both, but we don't want to be here.
We don't want you to be here.
And that's
Absolutely
exactly
not.
how I started this interview, because you shouldn't be here.
No.
And to me, I feel you've been let down. You shouldn't be sat on our this morning sofa having to find the answers to questions that...
And to fight for justice,
You don't
do.
yet know about your babies. I can't... To me, that is unthinkable. I know yesterday that you met with the Prime Minister. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how did that go?
Well, that's...
largely our point, actually, is that the trauma that we're going through is just layers upon layers upon layers. And the last thing we should be having to do is fight for appropriate justice. And we're very grateful to meet with them yesterday. We were very grateful to meet with Keir Starmer. We're super grateful for all of the media coverage. But why? Because if we hadn't made so much noise, I question whether we would be getting that audience at such short notice. And I question, we've had letters now asking for meetings with Justine McKinney from the CPS and with the Chief Constable of Nottinghamshire Police Force. Those came in yesterday afternoon. That's not coincidental.
No.
Right? We're not going to comment too much more about what happens next. They have said there's going to be a review. Review is fine. It's a toe in the water. If it needs a public inquiry, then proper answers. And if that takes years, that takes years, because Barney, Ian and Grace aren't coming back.
These are your kids. You're never
We've
going to
been
stop.
rushed into this situation within 7 months. This case has been rushed through. We've been hastened and railroaded by the CPS, and now it's time, now that we are able to speak, to get answers.
This is a multi-agency thing.
Huge failure.
It isn't just one person or one agency, and it's also intra-agency. So the only way you'll cover all of that is by an umbrella inquiry rather than just have... So at the moment, fair enough, there's a deep dive happening into the health service, but that deep dive needs to result into something.
Needs to change in legislation.
And we need changes in legislation. We need changes in legislation in terms of carrying knives. All of that kind of stuff needs to be
Well, we've got the
looked at.
Prime Minister in today.
Yes.
As you know, on the show, we're going to be bringing up these topics with him.
Absolutely.
I do need to read a few things out, as you know, from a legal standing and point of view. A CPS spokesperson said, our thoughts and sympathies are with the families of the victims at this incredibly difficult time. Engagement with those who have been left bereaved is one of our highest priorities, and in all cases, we'll continue to liaise with the victims' families throughout the legal process. And then Nottinghamshire Police referred us to the statement that they did put out immediately after the sentencing, in which Assistant Chief Constable Rob Griffin said, my thoughts remain with the loved ones of each of the victims and those who continue to be affected by the tragedy.
But we
These
want
are
a full
words.
public inquiry.
They're words on an iPad that we read out. Me and Rosh can sit here and give you our sympathies. We're never going to know. And fingers crossed, we never have to know the grief that you guys are going through.
God, I hope not.
We think you're so strong for doing what you're doing. Keep fighting that good fight, because you deserve answers and you deserve justice. You really do.
We should mention quickly, you've both set up foundations, haven't you, for Barnaby and for Grace. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, I'll start with Barnaby's very quickly. So I know we both families thought that something has got to come from this that's good. And with Barnaby's, Barnaby was, I think, the mirror image of Grace, very inclusive, you know, would never leave someone sat in the corner, always wanted to help.
Hated bullies. He hated seeing people struggling.
He was not that boy. So his foundation was set up very much to help young people in challenging situations.
It's young people facing life challenges.
Life challenges, yeah.
And that could be financial, social, sexual, physical. And it doesn't have to be individuals, it could be charities we support.
And we have put the cricket in there as well, because he loved cricket, so we had to...
You couldn't leave cricket.
No.
Grassroots cricket,
If we can
them.
help people get into cricket, that need to get into cricket with kit or whatever it is and stuff, just try and help young people come through and enjoy
Well,
it.
his legacy will live on.
Yeah.
And what about Grace's?
And Grace's foundation was actually set up by her brother, James. He actually set the whole thing up. We didn't know anything about it initially. James adored his sister, absolutely adored her. There was a lot of hero worship there. He tried to keep up with her in terms of sport, academics, everything like that. Pretty much surpassed some of the stuff earlier on. They always had this kind of banter between them. But, you know, he set it up because he thought that he would like to invest in children, underprivileged children, perhaps playing hockey, sport, you know, and help in terms of inclusivity, as the Webbers have said also.
Well, we're so honoured to have met you. We wish it was under different circumstances.
absolutely.
Keep fighting that good fight, and we really hope you get the justice that you all deserve, genuinely. We send our love to Ian's family as well, and our condolences.
Absolutely.
We know no one is here from Ian's family. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we
No,
hope
thank
next
you.
time we see you, you've got more.
And Brandon,
that you
we'd
want.
really like to thank members of the public for supporting us. That really means a lot to us. We just want to say really,
It's hit a chord
really,
with
we're gonna-
everyone.
It
Yeah.
has.
Really
Everyone.
big
There's
thank
not,
you.
there's
Protect
not a
them in the
parent
future.
across
No.
the country that isn't behind you.
Thank you so
Absolutely
much
not.
to
We really
everyone.
appreciate
You
it.
take
Thanks,
care of all
guys.
of
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Real pleasure to meet you all.
Right, we'll be back right after this break.